Go ahead, start us off, Tori.
All right. I'm Tori McElhaney, and I've just spent a week in the Dominican Republic, so this is as zen as I'm ever going to be.
I'm Aaron Freeman. I didn't spend a week in the Dominican Republic, but I'm feeling pretty zen with a stress-free Sunday that just passed.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and so I'm gonna remain zen like everyone else and keep the party going.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now. Welcome into the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis, and Falcons senior reporter, Tori McElhaney. The Squad Show is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Move. So what is their identity, or have they established one at all? We'll discuss. Also, turns out the NFL schedulers might be geniuses after all. We'll talk about that and more Falcons in the hall. We'll download on that too. But first, let's talk about two Falcons standouts in the month of September. Bijan Robinson was named NFC Offensive Player of the Month for September. Through the first 4 weeks, Robinson logged 64 carries for 314 yards, 1 touchdown, along with 18 receptions for 270 yards and a touchdown. So, Jarvis, what can you say about a guy in Bijan who's leading the lead in total yards from scrimmage to end the month of September?
You got to say that he's the guy that you drafted. He's the guy that Terry Fontenot has been glowing about and gushing about ever since he walked on that Flowery Branch campus, right? You know, to put a college phrase into it. So you see the explosiveness. You see what he brings to the table on a regular basis. You see the walking on the waters of the world, the blue magic. You know, he's standing on it, and he believes in it, and that's what he is when he steps on the field. So it's just amazing to see the type of player that he is on the field, but the man also. Like, I'm really keen on that because he's just an awesome guy just to talk to. He's a superhuman being, and when I know we make jokes about walking on water, but he lives that life too, right? He stands on that. That's how he projects himself. That's how he lives his life, and that's how he walks it. So for me to see all of the things that, you know, Terry Fontenot believed when he drafted that guy, and everybody was looking at him crazy with the running back, and I was one of those guys. But now you see why. I understand wholly why they brought him in, and for him to get acknowledged like this from a national perspective. We talked about how Bijan Robinson is kind of still in the underlyings of the league as far as being recognized nationally. I feel like if he continues to play like this and the Falcons continue to win football games and be in the conversation to get in the playoffs and compete for this division, I feel like we're going to be having some real conversations about him, maybe offensive player of the year type deal, because he's just been absolutely crazy this first month of the season.
Yeah, and Tori, when you think about September and what Jarvis said is true, winning matters. And so now, even if it's just a couple of wins, hey, you've got wins under your belt. And it's because we talked about this on some of the squad shows leading up to this week, how, yeah, it's great to have as many yards as the Falcons had on the ground. But ultimately, when you start turning that into scores, that's when the league starts paying attention, because scores typically lead to wins. So then you talk about the fact that he's the only player, at least as of the end of the month of September, in the NFL to rank in the top 20 in both rushing and receiving yards. But low key, it's really the fact that he's also able to not just move the chains, but he's also able to help this team to get scores, put points on the board, and get them back into a situation where now we're going into the bye week or coming back against the Buffalo Bills, and the Falcons could be looking at being in a situation where they're 3-2. But ultimately for you, when you look at Bijan, whether it's on the field, off the field, or a little bit of both, what just makes him so special? And I mean, what other accolades do you give for a guy like him?
Yeah, so when it comes to Bijan, something that I've actually been doing like quite a bit of research on for a upcoming project that we're doing over on AtlantaFalcons.com in the coming weeks is kind of like, to answer your question, like what makes Bijan so different? And what makes Bijan so different is his ability to anticipate movements of defenders before they even make them. And more often than not, he guesses correct in how they're going to move and how he's going to counteract. It's like everybody else is playing checkers and he's playing chess, and he is multiple steps ahead of guys who are trying to tackle him. And I mean, it's just really that simple. And what's also interesting in that is when you look at actually like Bijan Robinson, the physical runner, he's not the fastest guy on the field in terms of other running backs in the league. But what makes him so special is his vision and his ability to accelerate and decelerate at a rate that is kind of unlike just about anybody else in the league. And it's kind of that twofold approach of he has this like crazy sixth sense as to what a defender is going to do, but he also has the physical attributes of being able to decelerate and move and shift his way through defenders as it's kind of wild when you like truly watch him. You watch his eyes, you watch kind of like the GPS tracking of how he's moving. I mean, it's all just what he does is so special. And again, it's unlike anything else that a lot of people are doing. It's like Bijan really is kind of this one of one type of player, and we're seeing that actively in the fold right now.
Yeah, and Aaron, this is a player like Bijan. You know how we say like, hey, there's that leap, if you will, from year 2, and there's what are we looking for in the third year player, and so on and so forth. And you really feel like a Bijan Robinson is the guy who's shown you, I keep adding. Like I came in the league with this raw talent, if you will, but like Tori said, adding to the cerebral aspect of his game and bringing all of those things together so that every single year we just see him build. So it's nice to see the league kind of catching up to what the Falcons fan base and those who cover the Falcons already know about just how special he is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that, T, because, you know, I remember when he was drafted and certain people, you know, were not necessarily as thrilled about that selection. And, you know, you understand, you know, given all the rhetoric surrounding, you know, taking running backs high and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole conversation about positional value and all that stuff. And I was just kind of like, well, you know, that positional value conversation may be a conversation 5 years down the road when it comes time to pay Bijan Robinson. But in the meantime, you know, all the people that are upset with that draft selection, you know, they're going to have to be, quote unquote, punished by having to watch this guy play for another 5 to 7 years. And it's like, oh my God, what a terrible punishment that you're going to have to endure, that you get to watch one of the best football players on the planet play football every single Sunday for the next 5 to 7 years. Oh my God, I have to endure watching 60 to 80 to 100 games of Bijan Robinson. Oh my God, this is such a terrible crime that we have to, oh my God, what has befallen us as Falcon fans and Falcons media people? Oh, what? This is so, you know, terrible.
Something is getting personal here. I don't know. He kept going, you know. I get it the first 15 seconds, but you start going to 30, 45. The voice is just piercing my soul. Free, what you got something to say to your boy? What's going on?
Well, notice, Aaron, it's not piercing anybody else's soul. The other two are real good.
Yeah, we're fine.
So maybe, you know, when you're called out, Tori, sometimes, you know, a little sensitive.
You know,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a married man. I'm used to being called out to you. So, you know what I'm saying? I like to speak on that stuff and reveal my soul.
And acknowledge
move on. You know what I'm saying? Yes, I have to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is I. Okay.
He is I is him. You know what I'm saying?
But like, you know, besides the, you know, the terrible punishment that everybody has to endure watching this man play football, you know, going into the season, With the injuries that we were talking about with Caleb McGarry and how it was going to impact the run game, and it was like, oh, well, because going into the summer, I was like, yeah, I think Bijan Robinson has a real legit chance to lead the league in rushing. And then Caleb McGarry went injured, and I was like, oh, that kind of is going out the window, and it hasn't really gone out the window, right? And I think that's a testament to Bijan being able to make it work despite not necessarily having the level of blocking that he's been used to seeing for the first couple of years of his NFL season. And then you throw in the fact that he's kind of making up for any drop in production there, if there is any at that point, with being a much more impactful player in the passing game. And you've seen that just a number of times in these first 4 games where it's just kind of like, you throw him an outlet pass and he finds a way to turn it into a 50, 60 plus yard gain. And that's just something that, we have seen him do from time to time, but the fact that we're getting it at a regular basis, and you saw it on display fully in that Washington game, where it was a major part of the Falcons passing attack to just line him up wide and say, hey, Bijan, go do incredible things. And I think that's just a testament to what you're talking about, T, which is that steady improvement that he has shown from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. And so, it's just, as we sit here waxing poetically about, Bijan's greatness, it's just, just another sign of even when someone like myself, who was never skeptical or never questioning Bijan or anything like that, the one time I was like, yeah, well, I don't think he's going to lead the league in rushing anymore, or, come close to it. It's like, well, he might not lead the league in rushing as we sit here today, but he's leading the league in scrimmage yards. And again, that's just his ability to be able to overcome pretty much any circumstances you kind of throw at him. And that's just a testament to his greatness.
Indeed. I love what Godly Z said. He said, such a crime to enjoy ankles being snatched every Sunday. I love that. Now, Jarvis, he wasn't the only Falcon to get accolades. Xavier Watts was named Defensive Rookie of the Month for September. He led all rookies through 4 games in interceptions with 17 solo tackles. Also tied for the rookie lead in passes defense with 4 through the month of September. So how impressive has it been for Watts to make that kind of impact this early?
It's amazing when you're talking about a rookie playing on the back end of a defense, right? And an aggressive style defense alongside Jesse Bates, who is Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan of this defense. So I think that because coming into this season, you look at certain positions and say, okay, it may take them some time to kind of come around, but you understand and see the talent. I saw the talent, but you say, okay, playing on the back of the defense, they brought in Jordan Fuller. They might have Jordan Fuller get in there, and when Xavier Watts is ready, he'll be good to go. X-Man said, no. I'm ready now. And when you see what he's been able to accomplish in his first month of the season, you start to think about, okay, all right, if this is his floor in the first month of this season, not having gone through an entire season and seeing all of the things that they're trying to throw at him, they're trying to try him, or they're trying to roll plays towards him because they're trying to avoid number 3 on the other side of the field. Like that's a pretty high mark when you're talking about this early in the season to be able to accomplish what he's doing right now. And I think that he's the type of guy that is going to not settle. I get those vibes. He's a guy that say, hey, he wants to continue to be better. And I think that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it. This might be the best draft Terry Fontenot had since he's been here with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm just saying, because still talking about value, Billy Bowman, the early returns are nice on him. Xavier Watts is being recognized by the league in the first month of the season. Yeah, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, they're coming along. We've seen flashes. And, when you talk about that, having that impactful draft class, it propels you to something. The Falcons are trying to get into the playoffs, right? We saw, Dan Quinn's first year in 2015. Hey, man, they came into 2016 draft saying, we need 3 starters. And they got it. And they went on a run to the Super Bowl with that young behind defense. And I'm not saying they're going to go on a run to the Super Bowl. I am saying these are the type of classes that can propel you to where you want to be. And where they want to be right now is in the postseason. So, yeah, shout out to Terry Fontenot because this is looking really good right now.
I think that when it comes to the conversation around Xavier Watts, like I still don't understand. This is just kind of just backs it up. I don't understand how he fell as far as he did in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, and I really
Yeah.
think, like, looking back and thinking back to, I mean, heck, like we all do mock drafts probably like multiple times every single week. And I like had no doubt in my mind. I think there were multiple mock drafts that I did that I was like, take Xavier Watts in the second round. And I felt super confident that he was not going to fall out of the second round. Like there's not a chance. And to see the fact that, okay, yes, he falls to where he did and the Falcons got him. The fact that he is having the success as early as he is a testament to, I think, who he is. I think that he is such a instinctual player. We talk about the instincts of Bijan Robinson. We often talked about the instincts and the knowledge of what Jesse Bates is as a safety and how there are few who play the mental game of football better than Jesse Bates III. And I think that I would put Xavier Watts in that same level of conversation about instincts, because that's something that I remember I was talking to Jerry Gray about very early on after the Falcons drafted Xavier Watts. And he kind of made the comment, he was like, he just knows where to be. He was like, he puts himself in the position to make plays. And he was like, that's sometimes something that you can't teach. Like you can learn it, you can evolve it, like you can be better at it, you can put in a lot of time and effort into it. But he was like, for a guy who has only been playing this position for 2 whole years, after being a receiver, after being kind of like a linebacker at one point, like after doing a bunch of different things at Notre Dame, the fact that he is so new to the position, but shows this level of understanding where the ball is going to be, where like what angles he needs to take on runners, like it's pretty impressive, the fact that he's so early on in his career and doing some of these things. And it speaks to the level of instincts that he has when understanding where he even needs to put himself to make a play.
Yeah, I'm for one am not super surprised that he's gotten off to this start, because I just felt like, going back to what Tori just said, like he to me was a guy that, as far as, you know, having the neck up ability of a safety, which I think safety is one of those positions that is primarily still a neck up position, very similar to quarterback, where you just kind of, it's not about, you know, how fast you run or all those various things. He came into this league much more advanced than I think your typical safety was, especially given his background. The fact that he was able to make all the plays he made in college, as Tori just pointed out, making, you know, position switches midway through his career, is a testament to that ability. And then you couple that with, I think, the Falcons putting him in a situation that I think is conducive to his thriving, where his best skill set was kind of being that deep safety. And, you know, I think naturally a lot of people were like, oh, well, you know, Jesse Bates is one of the best, you know, center fielding safeties in the NFL, and he'll be the deep safety. And it's like, oh, well, you kind of want Jesse Bates kind of closer to the ball so that you can take advantage of his, I was going to say cheating, but his ball hawking skills, his tendency to teleport around the field and not always be where, you know, the defense as it is drawn up is he's supposed to be. So you can label that whatever you want to label that. And so having Xavier Watts, who's kind of a perfect sort of guy to be that more of that deep safety, and you've seen that reflected in both of his interceptions, where both times, you know, the opposing quarterback, JJ McCarthy and Marcus Mariota, were trying to attack deep, and he basically was able to take advantage of, you know, either overthrow or, you know, maybe that quarterback being a little bit too aggressive and being in the right place. So it's not, to me, a complete shock that he's gotten off to as good a start as he has, just because I think it was a perfect blending of the player and the scheme fit coming together to make, and I think this was going back to what Jarvis said, this was kind of the vision of what Terry Fontenot and his coaching staff were really hoping to get. And they were hoping to get this from Justin Simmons last year, and Justin Simmons had the pedigree, to play this role, but for reasons that we will not name because we constantly bring up those reasons on these Falcons Squad shows. Those reasons may or may not have to do with a former University of Washington defensive coordinator, and we're not talking about Steve Belichick. It's one of those things where like you didn't get to see that version of that player in Justin Simmons last year, and now you're kind of seeing that vision that the Falcons had a year ago now being manifested in a rookie of all pieces. But I do think, going back to what Tori said, Xavier Watts to me was not your typical rookie coming into the league, and I think was much more advanced than a lot of people perceived him to be, and certainly given where he dropped in the draft, certainly is living up to that second round billing that a lot of people had on him.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the success of Bijan, look at the success of Xavier, you think about them helping this Falcons team to maybe create their identity on offense and defense. But for our squad show, what are those identities? We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots? Run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. So I think about my favorite local spot, which is Vickery's, and it is in the heart of the Glenwood community, been there for years, kind of place where you walk in and everyone knows your name, cue up the cheers sound. But I like to go there because it's good food, it's good people, and very, very good eats. So think about this. Square is a proud partner to businesses like that are in more than 4 million neighborhoods around the world. 4 million businesses around the world. So you can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. And Square supports so many businesses, even many nonprofits that I work with, because they show up for the community. And when we all show up as a community, it can mean big business for local business owners. So don't forget, you can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. All right, guys, I tell you, the technical difficulties today at the Batiste household are on 10. So give me a second. Will get me all squared away so you can at least hear my voice and hopefully see my face for the rest of the broadcast. But that said, Tori, we are a quarter of a way through the season, give or take. So I wanted to ask for you, and I know it's still a work in progress. I think we started to really kind of see it mesh against the Washington Commanders. But starting on the offensive side of the ball, what for you, if you do feel like they've developed their identity, what for you is their identity? If not, let me know, and then I'll come back to what you would like it to be. So first off, offense, what's the identity?
Bijan Robinson. Like, that's the identity. Like, when
pretty much. Next question.
When nothing works, Bijan works. And I think that is like, again, it's the whole conversation that we had at the top of the show of how special of an athlete he is, how amazing it is that we get to watch him every Sunday, Monday, whatever day it is. I think the goal of the Falcons' offensive identity, though, should be more than that. I think that, to the point, Tenitra, of what you said, where it's like we saw what it could be against the Washington Commanders. I think that is the standard for which we should want to see the Falcons reach to, where it was getting Kyle Pitts involved. It was hitting Drake London. It was Michael Penix showing that confident, strong arm that we've seen from him. And it's seeing Bijan Robinson be sprinkled throughout all of it. And I think that's the goal. But is that their offensive identity right now? No, because for only 1 out of the 4 games that they've played so far, have we seen what it realistically should look like based on the expectations that we have for this offense. So for that reason, I can't say that what they did against Washington is their true identity. It is what you want the identity to be moving forward. So that's my answer is a little bit twofold. So it's Bijan Robinson and it's what they did against Washington. And can they do it again? Can they do that against the Buffalo Bills? Can they do that against the San Francisco 49ers? If we see what this offense was against Washington, against those teams in the coming weeks, things could be really interesting down the stretch for this Atlanta Falcons team. And they could make a lot of noise, particularly offensively, in a way that they didn't in the first 3 games of the season. And that's the goal. That's the hope.
Yeah, I would agree, Aaron. I think we saw glimpses. We got excited. We got encouraged because we all knew that what we saw against the Commanders was possible. But now that we've seen it, do you feel like maybe you have a better feel for what their identity is, or maybe offensively for the Falcons, what it could be?
Yeah, I think Tori nailed it in the sense of right now their identity is Bijan, get him the ball and let him cook. And I think their goal is to make it a more of a pick your poison type of offense where we have Bijan, we have Drake London, we have Kyle Pitts, we have Darnell Mooney, we have Tyler Algier, even Charlie Warner in the mix. We have all these guys that, if you focus on one of these guys, and right now defenses are going to focus on Bijan,
Sure.
or these other guys are going to burn you. And I think, as Tori said, you got to see that in Washington where Bijan had a big day, Kyle Pitts had a big day, Drake London had a big day. Now you got to get Darnell Mooney incorporated into that. And if you can just kind of have, in any given Sunday, sort of 3 or 4 of those guys going off, like that to me is what the identity of this Falcons offense is going to be. I sort of compared it on a recent Locked On Falcons to kind of what that 2012 Falcons offense was when you had Julio Jones and Tony Gonzalez and Roddy White sort of spearheading that passing attack. You didn't quite have the running game at that stage with Michael Turner at that stage in his time, but like that's kind of the general sort of idea of what you want, where it wasn't every week that Julio or Roddy or Tony went off, but usually if one of those guys had a quiet day, it meant somebody else had a big day or whatever. And this was the Tony Gonzalez game, and this was the Julio Jones game, and this was the Roddy White game. And you kind of want, as we look back over this upcoming season, you kind of want to look back at each of these games and be like, oh yeah, that was the Kyle Pitts game. That was the Drake London game. That was the Darnell Mooney game. That was the Bijan game. That was the Tyler Algier game. Oh, that was the game where Charlie Warner had 2 touchdowns in that game or whatever, that sort of thing. So I think that's the identity that they're building towards. We got a big step towards that against Washington, but as Tori said, they're not quite there yet where we can consistently say that.
Yeah, Jarvis, I really like that example too that Aaron gave, because as he was calling out that 2012 offense, that's where my mind was going. Like, I would like us to be on a squad show every week and we're calling out a different player, because that means that what Zach Robinson is strategizing, the offense is executing and everybody is executing around everyone else. So it doesn't matter whom amongst the 11 is making it happen, even down to what we said, maybe not in the Commanders game, but even the game where it was like, oh my God, like we didn't even know Chris Lindstrom had another level that he hadn't hit, but he did, right? So I think that when Aaron is kind of calling out that offense, my mind went to, we want to have a conversation on squad shows where it doesn't matter which of the 11 is that guy. It can be on any given Sunday, that guy, not named Bijan, and this team still wins. To me, that's a good identity. But for you, what would be the identity that you're seeing develop, or the identity that you think could or should develop for this Falcons offense?
I've said from the beginning, leading up to the season, that Bijan Robinson running the football is going to be the foundation of this offense. What I want to see more of, and we haven't seen enough of it, and it's been very, very little when we have seen it, is play action. That has to continue to be added to this game, because what that's going to do, that's going to make everyone's life easier. And the most important person is going to make easy is Michael Penix Jr., because the more you have, the more success that you have running the football with 7, that's going to make life easy when you turn around and fake it to him, and he's going to have options down the field. We talk about, Darnell Mooney getting back healthy and him being that deep ball guy. We saw Drake London in the Commanders game kind of break out, and then people are kind of surprised, like, oh yeah, Drake London, ooh, Yeah, this is what we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
He had a breakout year last year. National media, y'all folks, you can tell. You just tell on yourself. You watch one game and then you try to make a whole paint a broad picture of what's going on with his team, and I despise it. I despise it, and I'm called out every time I see it. But anyway, y'all, that's a little personal. But back to as far as this offense goes, I think this is what we want to see. We want to see the running game get going. We've seen that. That's been pretty consistent. You can say, hey, that's part of the identity. But the thing that needs to be added to it needs to become part of their identity, part of their makeup, and what they want to do on offense is the play action. Like I said, because it's going to make Michael Penix Jr.'s job a lot easier, because guys are able to separate really quickly when they think the defender is think they're running the football. When you're freezing that second level of their defense, that touchdown against the Commanders that Kyle Pitts brought, oh my gosh, the entire second level of defense was froze for probably about a half a second to a second, and all that, and Kyle Pitts was able to create enough space where it was an easy throw and catch. That's what we need to see more often than not, because I think that's going to be the thing that get them to my preseason, expectation of 28 points a game. That's that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen to you. I promise you. I think.
But I will say, I think that is an expectation that is attainable because of the very things that you said, the very things Tori said, the very things Free said. So yeah, if we see what we're supposed to see with any number of players on this offensive side of the ball, I don't think 28 points is out of the realm of possibility on a consistent basis, meaning there are obviously going to be some days where there are going to be closer games, or it's going to be decided in the 17, 20, 24 range. But ultimately speaking, I keep saying, if we're talking 28, we're talking touchdowns. And if we're talking touchdowns, we're talking wins. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the identity of defense and special teams, but also, oh my goodness, the NFL schedulers ended up being maybe geniuses after all. We'll unpack it in next up. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the body forward. So think about this. You have moments that define games where a team wins or a team loses. And you have moments that define a game like what we have seen Bijan Robinson do. Man, in that Commanders game, just absolutely getting it done on the ground and in the air in terms of yards from scrimmage. That's why he is Offensive Player of the Month. So for the NFC, so if you're going forward and you're looking for that player who's moving things forward, the one who can make moves that defines a game, that's Bijan Robinson. And if you're looking for it in a car, that's Mazda, or really a vehicle as well, because when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is always the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there is more to a Mazda vehicle. So be sure to check out Mazda, move and be moved. So, Aaron, let's continue talking about the identity of the team. I think the defense has had some pleasant surprises there as we started the show off talking about Xavier Watts. Not that we didn't think that he was going to be good, but man, you got to say it's impressive in what he's been able to do early on, and even other members of the rookie class. Maybe it doesn't always come in the stat line for Jalen Walker or James Pierce Jr., but we are seeing some things, and even in rookie class 2.0 from 2024, where we're starting to see some uptick even there as well. But ultimately, when you think about the defense as a whole, what's the identity for this defense? Have you seen it? Do you feel like we're starting to see it evolve into what their identity is?
Yeah, I think that sort of aggressive attack style defense that, they wanted to build, I think you're seeing that come to fruition. You're seeing the quote unquote simplified defense that is, I think, helping a lot of these young players be major contributors, where they're not asking them to do all these complicated things pre-snap. They're not doing a ton of disguise on the back end. It's like you can line up and be like, yeah, I think they're in man coverage, and then they're in man coverage. But guess what they do? They're locking down guys when they play in man coverage, particularly in the first two games of the season. And hopefully with AJ Terrell coming back, they'll be able to get back to doing more of that. And you're seeing that pass rush, getting home on a more regular basis. You're seeing Jeff Ulbrich being aggressive with his blitzes and some of these pressures that he's bringing, with Caden Ellis popping. That was a question going into the season where it was like that week 1 game was like, are they going to ask Caden Ellis to do linebacker stuff more this year than they did in the past, where he was primarily a rusher? In that first game with Divine Diablo really popping as a pass rusher, you were thinking that. And then the last couple of weeks, it's like, no, we're still going to ask Caden Ellis to do all the Caden Ellis things that we're used to doing. And then that's allowed Divine Diablo to diversify his skill set. So I think the defensive identity is what this team was selling all summer in terms of being that aggressive attack style type of defense. We're going to be simple. We're just, we're going to be able to match you up. We're going to man you up. We're going to be able to attack you in various ways. And I think they're living up to that, Billy.
Yeah, indeed. And Jarvis, for you got to be pleased about the fact that you're getting into week 4 of the season, or wrapping up week 4 of the season. And as you get through that first quarter, the defense is upticking, even with some of the miscues, or maybe, you don't have another 6-sack game like you did against Minnesota, but so many other things that you can dig into across that stat line, across the box score, or even outside of the stat line, that makes you say, hey, this defense is developing an identity.
Absolutely. And if you ask me what unit is closest to consistently being who we think they're going to be as far as having an identity, it's the defense.
Yeah,
for me, because of the reasons Free just mentioned. We talked about it being fast and really being aggressive. Like you felt it in that first game, even in the loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You was like, oh, this defense looks different, and you can tell each and every game. And you know what I haven't said, T, for the first quarter or so for the season, if I can line it up like you did. I haven't said, man, what the hell are they doing out there? That hasn't come out of my mouth at all watching these guys play. And I said that a lot last year when a certain defense coordinator, Ocean, we just call him Ocean. Ocean was a defense coordinator. You know what I'm saying? Like when Ocean was defense coordinator, there were too many times that I was questioning play calling on 3rd and long, down in distance. We were having conversations about. I think we had that conversation on Locked On Falcons probably at least 15 times, in an 18-week season, right? So for me, when you don't question those things, you don't figure out, okay, why is the quarterback sitting back there, cooking breakfast and all this stuff, and he has all this time to throw the football, and your corners have to throw the ball, have all this time to have that cover. Yeah. That's when you're in a space where you understand the difference, you understand the evolution or the elevation that has going on that side of the football, and you just have a whole bunch of young guys just over there just figuring it out. And like you said, to the tune of you having a defensive rookie of the month, and you have guys who are amongst the leaders in pressure and pressures, and James Pierce Jr. when he's up there, right? When you talk about that and being consistent in that arena, and I think that as the season goes along, these guys are going to progress. They're going to get better, right? And they might go through some little valleys, right, as they go along in the season, because it's a little bit longer than in college. Sure. But you understand that they have the coach that's going to figure it out for them and have an answer for them. I think Jeff Ulbrich said something that I thought was so great. It's just wonderful to hear. He said, my job is to have an answer when something goes wrong on the field. And he said, if I don't have the answer for those guys as to how to fix this doggone thing, he said, I don't deserve to keep my job. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you talking about some accountability? That is what I'm talking about right there, because that's that type of coaching and valuing and teaching at the top level of not ego, none of that stuff, not my system and all that stuff. It's just teaching. I need to teach these guys. I need to help them understand what's going on out on that field. That's the number one priority. And I think that when you have a defense coordinator like that identity shines through game in and game out, regardless of win or loss.
Tori, what about for you, this defense? What's the identity? What do you feel like is the identity that's developing?
So I think it goes back to something that Jeff Ulbrich talked about in his very first introductory press conference. It's something that I actually did me and Taryn Walk and Will McFadden, we did a whole thing this past week on Jeff Ulbrich's heart, mind, fist mantra and what it means and what each pillar stands for and how it ultimately accumulates into what you see on the field. And I'm usually not one to be like super into like slogans or anything or mantras or anything like that. I'm just kind of, I just never have like really operated in that mindset. But when we sat down with Jeff Ulbrich to talk about it, he was like, it's not a slogan. It's not a mantra. It's 3 words that represent what we are, who we are, and what we do. And I felt like for me, through the first 4 games, you can see all 3 of those pillars in everything that this team does. I think that this group specifically, especially the young players on this defense, have truly bought into what Jeff Ulbrich is selling as a coach. And it goes to the heart, mind, fist of it all. Like, you think about the blitzes that they're putting together. They're not elaborate. They're not elaborate blitzes or anything like that. Like, it's just they're getting after the quarterback. They're making things uncomfortable and they're covering things up on the back end. Like it's very to Free's point about the simplicity of it. Like, they're just kind of going out there and they're winning and they kind of had their chains off of them a little bit and they can go and run around and play how they want to. And, they play really hard. They're a tough defense. They're a very fun defense to watch. And I think that ultimately goes back to everything that Jeff Ulbrich has said from the beginning that he wanted this group to be. And I think it's actually really interesting because one of the main things that he said when we were sitting in his office with him was, he was like, the stats may not change overnight. The impact that this defense has may not necessarily be there in week 1. He was like, but you're going to know from go that we stand for something. And I would argue that I know that they stand for something. I can see it. And I can also see it in the stat sheet. I can also see it in the way that they play and how they're making quarterbacks uncomfortable. Like, collectively as a group, I just think that they are kind of this entity of what Jeff Ulbrich said from day one he wanted them to be.
Yeah, I would agree. And I peeped into the series that Tori's talking about on AtlantaFalcons.com. You should check it out. It's actually pretty darn cool. Now, as hyped, Aaron, as we were talking about the identity of the defense, is as befuddled as we probably are about the identity of the special teams unit. What should that be? And you see, I even have some struggle on that because it seems so simple and it seems so obvious, but yet here we are, a quarter of the way into the season. We have a pretty good idea of what the offensive identity should be and or is. We have an idea of what the identity of this defense is. Special teams, I'm just going to go with ... but you give it a shot.
Yeah, I think most teams look at their special teams and the identity that they want that unit to have is consistency, right? Where you can consistently get, offense is going to be up one week, defense is going to be up some weeks, depending on who you're playing. But you always want your special teams to be consistent. You want to make your kicks. You want your punter to be able to flip field position. You want to be able to cover, kicks and punts and all that stuff. You want your returners to be able to get positive field position. And that all requires consistency. And the Falcons have not gotten consistency from their special teams unit. So their identity at this stage is very much a work in progress. And so we'll see if they can start being a little bit more of a consistent unit so that, we're not sitting here continually, devoting 15 minutes of a post-game show talking about special teams where it's like, we shouldn't be talking about special teams this much on these post-game shows. There should be a lot more to talk about with other things involved with the team, not to diminish the third phase of the game, but typically that third phase of the game is the hidden phase of the game that most people don't tend to notice unless things are going either extremely good or extremely poorly. And unfortunately for the Falcons, it's just been a little bit of the latter as opposed to the former at this stage so far this season. So I think that's the main thing that the Falcons want to fix.
Yeah, I think for me, this is an incomplete. I have no idea what the identity of this special team is because your longtime kicker that you were super loyal to. You came in and he kicked one game and then you got rid of him. You know, John Parker Romo, he was in it. He wasn't there. You sat him down for a game, and then after John Parker Romo came and did his thing, went 5-5 against the Vikings, you were like, oh, okay, well, we'll see you later. And then he stunk it up against the Carolina Panthers. Okay, he went 0-2. Now, then when it gets Commanders and hit a couple chip shots, you know, so hopefully that trend continues. Sure. But until they get this kicker situation and I don't get that feeling in my stomach, this identity of this special teams unit is going to be incomplete. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of the words, like consistent, incomplete, like the goal I would add to of a special teams unit is to be reliable. And I mean, that's basically kind of in the same vein of everything that we're talking about. Like, you want to be able to rely on your kicking game. You want to be able to rely on your returners. Like, and for the most part, over the last few years, you've been able to do that. Very, very much so, very strongly, you've been able to rely on your special teams unit, even at times when you couldn't rely on anything else. And I think that that's what's making this, what we've seen through the first 4 games of the special teams unit, like such a hard pill to swallow at times, because we have seen what they've been able to do. And we have seen kind of them not only be reliable, but be big time playmakers and to really capitalize on moments that change the outcomes of games. And now it's kind of the other side of the same coin, where it's like changing the outcomes of games, but not for the better. It's putting the defense in tough field positions, or the offense in tough field position opportunities. Like it's just one of those things where like you want to rely on this group. And at times you can, and at times you can't. To go back to Freeze, like consistency, like you want them to be consistent, you want them to be reliable. But right now it is kind of what Jarvis is saying, where it's like, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, mixed bag indeed. So yeah, I think that unless and until, and maybe it's not even an unless and until, maybe it's just a we shall see. I think every other aspect of special teams, you know, as long as you get a healthy Jamal Agnew that Marquise Williams can work with, and he's getting it out of Bradley Pinion just in terms of being able to those opportunities to flip the field. If maybe there can be some consistency there, maybe it can kind of offset and maybe take a little bit of pressure off what the rest of that team needs to do. And really, I shouldn't even say the rest of Parker Romo, what the kicking team, what the kicking game needs to be for this team. When we come back, we'll talk about the NFL schedulers, maybe possibly getting it right, and any Falcons being added to the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about if there are more to go into Canton in Next Up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So you're going to love FanDuel because it gives you so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much easier. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, you're going to love it because you can build parlays, try player props, and even follow the live lines during games, which gives you so many ways to play. And of course, it'll make watching the game that much more fun. So visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So Jarvis, we looked at the schedule early on and thought, what? A bye in like week 5? Kind of a bit of a disappointment because you kind of think of a bye as something maybe a third of the way in or even half way into the season to give your players a reset. But if we're being honest, some big players on both sides of the ball. If we think about AJ Terrell going down during the season, if we think about Darnell Mooney coming into the season, not 100%, for example, you kind of look at this bye week and say, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. I mean, how much better is it that turns out the bye week has come just ahead of a big showdown against the Buffalo Bills, who are pretty healthy coming into the Benz next week. How important is it, or maybe good after all, that this bye week has come at the time it has for these Falcons?
It's perfect timing, because when you think about giving AJ Terrell another week to kind of get right, you talk about soft tissue injuries,
Yes.
which can vary from player to player. Like something breaks, you can pretty much say, hey, 4 to 6 weeks, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be back, be good to go. But we're talking about that soft tissue, it's all about pain tolerance and all of those things. So to give your number one corner that extra time to get back right, I think it was perfect timing. And we thinking about potentially starting the process of getting a guy like Storm Norton back, starting the process of getting a guy like Taquan Graham back. All of those things matter. And when you talk about time, because my biggest concern for this defense, I didn't mention it earlier when we were talking about the identity of this defense, is that run defense. That's the only thing that I can kind of say, hey, I hope nobody don't really take a look at this thing and see, hey, man, we can run the football, run a little counter, you know what I'm saying? They're a little susceptible to that thing. So, and then with a team like the Buffalo Bills, who coming off a loss against the New England Patriots earlier this week, that stuff is going to matter, because a lot of times when games like that happen, teams refocus, they get back to the foundation of who they are, and they get about to Josh Allen and say, hey, man, save us. So the Falcons got a big test this week, and for you to get your number one corner, hey, they give me options, right? I can play a little bit more man than I want to, when versus having D offer out there, like, hey, man, we run a little zone every now and then, you know what I'm saying? So when you have that number one corner, that's going to open up a lot of things for the defense coordinator, and I feel like it's almost like the football gods written it. It was written that the Falcons are going to be dealing with injuries, and they need an extra week to get right on Monday Night Football against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. And Tori, injuries, and hey, maybe that kicker guy we're talking about can get a few more reps. Hopefully he's not taking too much time off, but it actually might turn out to be a plus for the Falcons after all, that they're having a bye this early.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I was happy that I got to go, get away for a little bit. So for me personally, like, that was great.
Yes.
Loved it. It was actually crazy timing this week 5 bye. But I think, though, I am concerned still about the fact that it did happen so early. I think that there's so much left of the season. And also, the offense particularly is coming off of its best performance, like point blank, not arguably, like its best performance they're coming off of. And there was a part of me that left last Sunday's game against the Washington Commanders being like, this offense needs to go again. They need to play again. Like, they need to get things going quickly. And like, this break kind of put this thought in the back of my head that it's like, oh no, are they going to like regress instead of progress? And I think like that's ultimately where I sit now. Like, how do you make sure the offense that shows up against the Bills on Monday Night Football after a significantly long break between their best performance and whatever comes next, how do you make sure that they look like what their last outing was and not what the last 3 outings were? And so I think like that's where I kind of go. I mean, it's the same conversation no matter when you have the bye. You're always going to be talking about injuries and guys getting back. It was just like this one piece of this offensive performance that I was like, I don't know. I kind of wanted, if we could go back and do it again, like, again, I would have the bye week after that Germany trip. I just would, like, or after going to San Francisco in 2 weeks. Like, I still, even though I had a great bye week, I still hate a week 5 bye.
Speaking of great bye week, Tori, T, we had talked about on Locked On Falcons how Aaron was going to share what he did on his bye week. And I tried to push him to, go out and, swallow the royal oats. You're making all this big time money, you know what I'm saying, doing Locked On Falcons. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead and spend a little bread, have a good time. So, Aaron,
you got the floor, sir.
Sure. Okay. All right. I guess we're doing this.
Well, you know what, Aaron, you can do a 2-parter, because my question was going to be about whether or not this was a good time because of the injuries, which let me just say this in agreement with Tori. It's always, we talk about it in basketball, especially because there's so much space when it comes to playoff time, rest versus rust, right? And so which one is actually going to prevail when you get the rest? So I totally get your point there. But Aaron, that's a two-parter for you to start us off. So part one is whether or not it turns out that the bye week might be a good look early after all. But part two is, what the hell did you do?
I love the way you posed that. That is so great.
Yeah, we'll see if the bye week ultimately, I think the timing right now for where the Falcons are is a good time because like they're coming off of this game, as Tori said, you would like them to be able to maintain this momentum, but it does give them a pause to kind of look back and see what's working, and hopefully they will be able to, build on that going into this middle stretch of the season. To me, the question with the timing of the bye is going to be, you got 13 straight games to play after this point in time. The only real break you get is that mini break coming off of that Thursday night game, I believe, in like week 15 against the Bucks. It is, and so we're talking about what, like 9-10 weeks of just gotta play straight football with no breaks, including an international trip in the middle of all that. So I do think the timing of this bye, while it feels good right now because you're getting a couple of guys coming off of injury that are going to be healthy for this stretch, are we going to be sitting here having a similar conversation in a month from now where it's like, oh man, we could really use a break. These injuries are starting to mount. So I think that's going to be a challenge that will just only time will tell on that front. And unfortunately, you just don't have as much control over whether or not guys can stay healthy over the course of the season. Now, on a more personal level, I did tell Jarvis this past Friday that I was planning on doing some stuff on Saturday. Unfortunately, those plans fell through for me to go out. So I just wound up, having a more relaxing Saturday evening, hanging out with some friends and family, watching a movie and whatnot. And so nothing too crazy that I got into on this bye week. So there's that.
So we'll just be on Aaron Freeman getting it in watch for the rest of the season. Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair.
Aaron Freeman hangover watch. Yeah. We need a hangover type story.
The hangover watch.
Okay. Yes, that's what we need. Yes, hangover.
There. Yes, we will be on that watch for the rest of the season. But speaking of that, Jarvis, Tori, you guys, we obviously have a squad show today, and we still have some obligations with our coverage of the Falcons. And Tori, you kind of hinted at it a little bit. What are you guys doing during this bye week to kind of take advantage?
Oh, I got back from the Dominican Republic late last night. So yeah. So I had a great time. We were there for 5 days, did a whole excursion, like drank way too many rum and cokes. Like I'm feeling A-okay.
Oh, you're rum and coke?
Yeah.
You rum and coke person?
I do like a rum and coke. I do. Yeah. I had too many though, so I probably won't have any more rum and cokes for a while.
Well, for me, Sunday was a very interesting day because my wife assumes that I'm going to be out of pocket for the entire day. And, she doesn't keep up with this Falcon schedule and everything like that. So I was like, oh yeah, we got a day off. She's like, oh, okay. So we went to church, did the whole thing. Then after church, we went to brunch, got something to eat, sat down, kicked it with the fam, my daughters, all that stuff. We were just out having a good old time. And then, we participated in my wife's passion. If my passion is talking about sports and covering the Atlanta Falcons, my wife's passion is going to look at houses. So we went to an open house. Around 3:30, the 1 o'clock game still going on. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I was like, all right, baby, we're going to take it down. Let's go there. You know what I'm saying? I was free. I was mind free. I wasn't worried about anything. I was like, I'll catch up on some stuff later, on the games and everything. So we'll be all good. But yeah, that was, but the only issue I had with it, T, don't tell her I told you this. Tenitra knows my wife. You know what I'm saying? They're very similar quality women. You know what I'm saying? Like, high character, super high character women. So she, before we got out the car to go into the thing, she was like, all right, here are the rules. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? We're like, all right, okay, are the rules? She was like, I don't need you to say anything. I don't want you to answer any questions. I don't want you to talk to anybody. Don't talk to the realtor. Don't say. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, so you just want me to go in there and just stand? Would you rather for me to stay in the car? And she's like, yeah, you can stay in the car. I'm like, whoa. I was like, what are we doing?
You're a chauffeur, Jarvis.
Yeah, like
you're an accessory.
Right, exactly. Basically, yeah, like it was just, I've never been treated like that before. I felt worthless. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my gosh, this is the side I don't want to see my wife. You know, like maybe I need to be out of pocket on Sundays going for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Because she's got a routine maybe that you kind of interrupted.
Yeah, exactly. So she was like, yeah, you can stay in here. Y'all can go I'll take an Uber home. It don't matter. So she really said that. She like, I'm not exaggerating. I know I exaggerate when I tell stories,
but not here.
Not here. She said that. She said, I will take an Uber if y'all got an issue. Like,
that's her time. No, I hear you on that, because I have a friend who loves to go and look at houses and kind of get ideas for decorating. And that's her little space, and she kind of does her own thing. So it's kind of, I guess, like antiquing, where people just go and that's like their thing and they just want to fly solo with it. Hey, look, do you whatever works. Yeah. I woke up at my same time yesterday like it was game day. So I was like, oh, but it's not game day. So what am I going to do? So it was boring. I mean, I just cleaned the house, and then I said, oh, wait, I got energy. I'll clean the truck. Oh, wait, I got more energy. I'll go work out. Oh, wait, I got more energy. I'm going to church. Oh, wait, I got to go to like Tequila somewhere, because I had to like go pick up some stuff for Xavier's upcoming homecoming. And then, me, very social person. So I was like, oh, the three of us. Oh, wait a minute. So-and-so lives next door. Hey, you want to come through? And by the time it finished, it was like 6 or 7 of us just kind of kicking it until some crazy hour last night. And that's kind of what I did with my Sunday, as I kind of snuck a peek at what was going on in the NFL and even over at the WNBA with their WNBA finals going on. But it was a nice little tiring, exhausting Sunday. I was like, shoot, I feel like I worked, and of course got ready for today's show. So, but glad that you guys, at least, Aaron trying to foray into some other areas. Tori giving all of us FOMO.
Spend some of that money, Aaron. Stop playing around, bro. You can't
Jarvis
take the with
finding
you, bro.
out that he was just a tag along. He didn't know it, but now he does. So Sunday was kind of, and a bye week was leading into the bye week was a bit of a lesson in exploration for us all. And it's all good. And I hope that the Squad Show family, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed your Sunday and that you were able to take advantage of some different things because of the bye. And of course, we always appreciate you, our everydayers, for making this show your first listen of the day. Stop by Locked On Falcons with Aaron as your second listen. Jarvis is a frequent contributor there as well. And of course, we talked about it earlier. Got some really cool articles, a series that Tori and her colleagues are doing over at AtlantaFalcons.com. Check that out. See you next time.